Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Fondre from the art room, and today we're going to talk about making your own clay at home. Now normally if we use clay in the classroom, it comes from the ground, it's from the earth. But not everyone has clay in their yard, so we're going to make it yourself and make almost a dough that works and acts a lot like clay. So you need 4 ingredients, and you most likely have these at home already. If not, they maybe cost $1 or $2 at the Pig. I just ran across the street and got some myself. So you're gonna need flour, you're gonna need cornstarch, you're gonna need some salt, and you're gonna need water. All right, you're also gonna want something to mix these things together, like a metal spoon would work great, and you're gonna want a bowl. I am using a yogurt container because that's what I have in my classroom. All right, so you are, and I should pose to mention, you're gonna want a measuring cup. You need a 1/4 measuring cup for all of your ingredients because that's all you're gonna need. So with your bowl ready to go and your measuring cup, I want you to do 1/4 cup of the flour and the cornstarch and the salt. Okay, so you're gonna put all the dry ingredients into your bowl and mix it really well. You can use your spoon here if you wanna kind of mix it with your container, that works too, all right? You wanna do that so they're mixed together before you add the water, which does some more mixing together. Once your powders are all mixed well, you're gonna wanna dump in the water slowly, maybe a little bit at a time, because if you do all of it, it takes a little bit longer and it's more lumpy. Okay, so add a little bit of water, mix, add a little bit more, mix, and you're gonna get to the point where it's kind of sticky and the spoon isn't quite doing it enough for you. And that's when you can kind of go in with your hands and really knead it, okay? Use those fingers and push and push and pull and find those little dry areas to squish in with the wet areas. And what you're gonna get after all of that is this really fun squishy chunk of white dough that works like a clay. It's not as gooey maybe as a normal clay, but it really gets the job done. And the beauty of using this is that once you're done making your project, you can just set it on the counter or a safe spot and it will air dry. So you won't have to put it in your oven. You won't have to do anything special with it to make it stay hard. You just let it air dry and it's gonna keep that shape. Okay, it might take a day or two depending on how thick some of the areas are with your dough, but you can always test it by doing a little bitty pinch fairly gently so you don't accidentally break anything. All right, so it comes out perfectly white because of all of our ingredients are pretty white, but if you want to, you are more than welcome to use some food dye and dye this little lump of dough. Okay, very important though, if you are doing that, you're gonna wanna use a fork to start mixing the dye in, because otherwise, if you use your hands, they're gonna be covered in whatever color you picked. So I would kind of almost make a little bowl shape to start, drop 1, maybe 2 food coloring drops in there, and then use your fork to start to squish it together. After a while, when it's better mixed in, you can go back to your hands. But if you get too much of the dye on your fingers, you're gonna have blue fingers for a couple of days. So anyways, we're gonna be doing a cave art project with clay, and each grade level does something a little bit different. So I'm gonna stop the video here, and I'm actually gonna talk individually to each class or each grade about what their group is doing. So here's a little bit of a pause, and then I'll jump into the rest of it. All right, hello my IS students. We're up to you for clay projects. So if you heard in class or looked through those PowerPoints or notes that I sent to the Google Classroom, we're talking about cave art, and for our project today with our handy dandy clay dough that we made, we're actually gonna be making pendants, or like something to wear from a necklace for jewelry. You're like, Miss Pendant / Mrs. Fondre, whatever you remember. I don't want to do a necklace. It's fun. Guys and girls wear necklaces, should do it. The amount of clay that you made, though, will probably allow for you to do more than one thing. So if I'm requiring the pendant and that is the thing I am actually grading, you could use the other part of the clay to make something else. I have some other grades are making animal sculptures, and some of them are painting on it. So you could use some of the clay for something else that you enjoy to do, but I am grading the pendant. You will need to email or submit to the Google Classroom a photograph of your pendant, so I know you were doing it. So for a necklace piece, it's not really big. You can't just have a whole like a lump of clay here. It would be heavy, okay? It's not very practical. So I'm just gonna pinch a chunk off. The big chunk, I'm gonna put it to the side. And even this might be a little too big. And what I'm gonna do, you're gonna either want to make some sort of animal. That's one option, where you almost like poke a hole through it to hang it from a piece of thread or twine to wear. Or you could make some sort of an arrowhead, because that is something else pretty commonly found in caves and in artifacts from caves. So while you're working with this clay, two things to think about. Number one is the texture of your item. Ding! Texture. The way something feels. So if you're like, okay, I'm gonna make an arrowhead or a spearhead, and you're working on making like this point kind of a deal, would it have been perfectly smooth? Probably not. Probably was a chunk of rock they had to carve and scrape away to make it pointed. So it's okay to like dent and make it look old. Like that's totally okay to do that. If you're trying to make something with a little more of an edge, so like more geometric, straight lines, a very good tool is probably a flat surface, where you just press it into the surface and it gets very flat, okay? So thinking about the texture, thinking about geometric versus organic, which is the lumpy freestyle shapes. But the other thing I really want you to think about is patterns. In the slideshow that I'm showing my students, there are a couple examples of pottery, which we actually looked at last year if you're in 6th grade and remember that. Some pottery with different patterns using just lines and dots for the most part. They didn't do super elaborate, fancy decorations. They did very, very simple lines, dashes, patterns, okay? So if you're at home and you want to do some of those things on your animal or on your pendant of some sort, I would recommend using a paper clip, okay? Or something really thin. You might have like wire in the garage, or you might have a needle that someone sews with at home. We're going to be using needle tools in the classroom, so this is what people in the building are going to be using. But for you guys and gals that are doing virtual, I recommend a paper clip. It's really easy and you can bend it different ways. And if I get really close here, let's see if this works. It's easier to press lines in. Let's see if this will focus up a little bit better. Versus dragging lines, because A, you're more likely to break chunks, and B, it makes it look kind of ripped, but that actually might be a texture you're going for. So play around with the paper clip and your clay to see what kind of marks you can make. You can make a bunch of little ones next to each other. It almost looks like feathers. Or you could even like draw an animal and wear it as a pendant. So it's really gonna be up to you how you're designing this. And the things I'm looking for are patterns, it's a pendant, you thought about the texture. Those are the 3 big things I'm looking for when you send me photos to grade it. So since this is a 3-dimensional piece that you can pick up and move around and it has many, many sides, it'd actually be helpful if you can take pictures from multiple angles so I can see it, all right? When you're done with this, you can paint it. It's up to you if you have paint or if you want to make paint with me in a later video, but send me your final project in the Google Classroom. I would say at least like 3 photos of each side, or 3 photos, 4 photos to see it, all right? So looking forward to see what you come up with your cave art. Enjoy.